Did you guys like my drawing?
I love it.
I didn't have room for me after I put you both in, and that's why I went, I'm going to make myself painting a fence in the background.
Oh, because that's from
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Foyer?
Tom Foyer.
Tomfoolery.
Tom Cruise.
Ooh, speaking of another person, I'm
By Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. By Mark. Hey, by the way, no, I'll save it.
Josh is so excited.
You are excited.
Really negatively about
And
this.
I just talked about how I completely disregarded his documentary and went to Beethoven.
Like I said, his biography is really interesting, and we'll get into it. The biography itself is actually like a really interesting look into his life because there's some pretty crazy stuff that happened to him. So, without further ado, welcome to the Twaddling Along podcast. I am your host, Dan McBride, here with my co-hosts and brothers, Jake,
Mark Twit,
and Josh.
And Mark.
I'm going to have to beep that.
Oh, sorry. I'll say it again. Here we go. No, not say it again.
No, it's too late. This is going to be the first censor.
Everyone's just going to hear Mark. Are you actually going to beep it, or is it just going to go silent?
I haven't decided. Should we do a beep or should we do something else?
Mark, we need.
You know what we should
do? What Craig Ferguson did, where
Well, we've got it. So I had to, on one of our last podcasts, at the very end, for no apparent reason, Josh just started going. And so I had to edit that out because it made no sense to anything. So I'm just going to add that back in.
You should, because I think Josh is going to be the one you have to censor the most.
Which is so funny because I'm the one that swears the least.
Oh.
We just have better self-control when we're actually on screen.
That's because you have kids.
Oh, we do have kids.
Yeah, but
I don't. I have Kylie.
Oh.
She's my favorite.
And she doesn't like when you swear?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's not, no.
No.
I get put in the doghouse. And I say, and I quote, and then I swear.
What does that mean when we swear accidentally in front of her?
She says,
accidentally, I don't know how
I hate them.
The deepest, darkest pit of.
yeah, you think she has a high voice now. Hey, Kylie, I love you. I know you're listening. I appreciate you.
We repent.
Yes. Without further ado, should we actually get into what we're talking about? Because we are just all over the place already.
I'm tired.
Wait a second.
Yes.
So I could just go blah, 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 and everyone's
and people are
going
to think that you're swearing. Yes. So that's if I choose to use that one. Maybe I'll use another one.
If you do it, you have to put it up to Chickmunk volume. So it's,
done.
Oh, geez.
So today, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, we are going to talk a little bit about Mark Twain, one Samuel Clemens, Langhorne Clemens, by the way.
Sorry, what was that?
Langhorne. His middle name was Langhorne.
Langhorne or Langhorne?
As in Froghorn, Leghorn?
Foghorn, Langhorn?
Is that what it is? Did I say Froghorn?
You did.
Well,
Foghorn, Leghorn.
I say ribbit. Yeah.
we're going to talk about him, but I've decided that when it comes to some of our...
pause.
Oh,
literally you said Froghorn. Literally the first sentence on Wikipedia is Twain first achieved success as a writer with a humorous story, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calvaris County.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's him writing the frog. I remember seeing
Hello,
that in
my
the
baby.
documentary.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime guy.
We're making a lot of Looney Tunes references.
We are already.
I love it.
Well, here's what I decided to do when it comes to the history, at least when it comes to me. Instead of just talking generally about the historical topic, which I think we do a pretty darn good job with, I want to spice it up a little bit.
Well, so you picked Mark Twain.
I did on purpose with the question in mind, is Mark Twain overrated?
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
This message was brought to you by.
So, and I need to preface this by saying that I actually really like Mark Twain. Like, maybe not as a person per se, but I love his writings. Like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, The Gilded Age, Kinetic Yankee and Court, all of them. I'm a really big fan. I've read a lot of biographies about him. I've taken the pilgrimage to his childhood home in Hannibal.
Like some Mark Twain religion.
Can I just say, I see Danny walking with a staff and robes.
Growing out my mustache so it's large and beautiful.
Were you singing Italian? No, stop!
Whatever it was. I don't think it belongs in the Mark Twainian religion. Anyways, so with that, I like him enough that I could probably consider myself to be like a super fan. But people consider Mark Twain to be like this literary genius, and I just don't think he actually was. I think he was a good guy when it came to writing.
Oh, okay. I was like,
not a good guy in personal life in some things, didn't like a lot of people, was a little grouchy. But I think that like when it comes to his writings, there's a lot of people during that age, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, even some of the Western writers that were just a lot better than he was.
I have no idea who any of those are.
What?
Dude.
Walden Pond?
And Ralph whatever Emerson.
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Jeffrey R. Holland quotes him all the time.
He does. Yeah, he's a big thing. So yeah. So like,
this is what happens when you just go, oh, there were authors before 1970.
Charles Dickens.
Well, he was during the same time.
Yeah.
So let's give a little bit of background, and then we're going to get your guys' opinions on Mark Twain. I think that we can probably already tell what those opinions are going to be.
You can see Josh is trying to derail every opportunity.
Here's why one of his pen names was just Josh.
It was.
He stole my freaking name.
He took your name.
Yes, he took your name.
Several 170
years before you were born.
Yeah, jerk.
So, Samuel Langhorne Clemens was born in Florida, Missouri. He was the sixth of seven children. His mom's name was Jane, and she was from Kentucky. And then there was John, who was his father, who was from Virginia. Did you guys read anything about John?
I just knew he died young.
So he did die young, but he was he was a really interesting character in the life of Mark Twain because he shows up in his books as the judge. So if you remember like the judge character from like Tom Sawyer, this like super severe, super intense, that's kind of how his dad was, except for his dad also was like way into like get rich quick schemes.
Yeah, that's
like,
kind of what I was finding out is he just didn't.
Mark Twain did that a lot too.
He did.
Is that where he got the idea?
Yeah, he really did. I mean, like the entire family, especially his oldest brother Orion, was really, really involved with like, hey, let's do something to try to gather a whole ton of money and then let's, live prosperously for the rest of our lives. And it never worked out for him.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there was something called the Clemens Curse where like Mark Twain himself said, I will never hold on to money because of this curse. And that comes from his mom, Jane, who was like super superstitious.
When life gives you clemens, you make clemonade.
Wasn't he like... Wait, what did you just say?
Lemonade. When life gives you clemens, make clemonade.
Dude, I just watched this little short that says lemons are a crossbreed of apples and oranges. So there's never lemons were a human-made thing. So life
like Romeo and Juliet.
Give you lemons.
Was the video before about how the earth is flat?
Yes.
I kind of figured.
And guess what? It's not. It's concave.
So it's funny because that's actually a pretty darn good segue into the kind of life that Mark Twain grew up in, because his mom really was like as superstitious as Josh just proved himself to be by claiming that lemons are a cross between, what was that, Josh?
Apples and oranges. Let me prove it to you.
Please. But she was like super involved with almost witchcraftery thing. She was super Christian, but she believed in really heavily in like what I would consider to be early Christian kind of voodoo stuff. For example, when Mark Twain had a brother that died, and it was a really big thing in his life.
Was that the one on the boat?
That was the one on the boat. And it was a huge thing on his life, and he blamed himself for the rest of his life because of some things that his mom like made him go through when he was young. When he was super young, he had, I can't remember if it was a sibling or I actually think it was his dad. When his dad passed away, his mom brought him into the room, made him place a hand on his dead father, raise the other hand, and make oaths to her.
Wow.
So it was
So he grew up in a very Christian area, but had a very like spiritualistic.
Yeah, but you know something? I think that was actually pretty darn common. I mean,
really?
When we talk about like early 18th century Christianity, they were all they still kind of had that backwoods Christian mental disorder.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because Mark Twain had many.
Read it.
Josh is trying to prove his point about lemons being descendants of apples and oranges.
No, not apples and oranges.
Yeah, it would be a cross between a sour orange and a citron.
So life doesn't give you lemons.
Not even close.
So
Joshua.
not even close to an apple. So, and a sour orange itself is a cross between a pomelo and a mandarin. So in other words, it's just,
So they're all fruits a lie.
There's no such thing as fruits.
There's a lot of interbreeding between fruits.
Whoa. And with that segue, talking about Mark Twain.
But anyway, going back to it, it's kind of interesting because he had multiple experiences where he had visions.
Yeah.
Pre some experiences. Like before his sister died, he had something that he told his mom about. So I'm sure
brother,
that made her that.
Yeah, the brother who had the boiler blow up, he
knew it a month before it had happened.
Yeah. He saw the brother in the same suit and with the flowers that he was going to have that he saw at the funeral. And
so, I mean, there's some weird things. And I know that when he was really young, his mom and some of her relatives believe he had the sight, is what they called it at the time. What we would call precognition, or what we would call seership, or what we would call.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because it was around the time of the second Great Awakening, or first, I can't remember, but that was happening everywhere. Seership wasn't a huge thing until, the early 1800s, moving into the thing where everyone was starting to claim that,
they started seeing things.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah, so the one thing that I want to say about Mark Twain is he was heavily influenced by his time.
Oh, 100%.
Like, he is literally a product of where he grew up and everything.
I also think that's why they give him so much credit for being Mark Twain, is because he was kind of the very first one that was writing about America.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds funny, but like up until that point, there was still a lot of European sensibility when people were writing novels, or when people were writing books, or when people were even doing travel logs. It always was European. He was kind of the first one that was like, no, this is the American voice. And he brought a lot of things into it.
Made fun of Europeans all the time.
Because
he took tours throughout, and he made fun of the Europeans, their religion, their beliefs, and everything about it. And that's, a lot of people found that really funny, I guess, in America.
Yeah,
I would.
Well,
I do.
The funny thing is like if you read some of his talks, because he was also a circuit speaker later in his life.
Now, what's a circuit speaker?
A circuit speaker. So back before the movies, and even before like vaudeville, a lot of people would go and actually sit down and hear a lecture from someone as entertainment. So someone would come in and they would talk to him for about 2 hours, and it was like, oh, this is the best thing that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Now, I hear Jake laughing, but I think her grandma was a circuit speaker.
I think she was.
She actually got
it makes me laugh just to think about it. Did you guys see? No,
really,
I need to go see that.
It really was.
That's true.
Like that's really a lot of people like actually rose to prominence by going around and just talking in front of people, because there really wasn't anything else to do.
I mean, I'm making fun of it, but what are we doing right now?
Yeah, you're listening to us. And not to completely go off topic, but that's what related to political speeches. Before this time, or around Mr. Twain, people didn't really go out and market themselves as a political person.
No.
That came later, when he started doing his stuff towards the middle of the 1800s to the end, is when you started having political, debates and different stuff like that, where they really marketed themselves out to everyone else. Normally, that never happened.
No, it was kind of, it was the burgeoning of what would be like not only just American politics, but American sensibilities.
Yeah.
This idea that we want to be entertained by the radicalists that are around us instead of being, being content with just normalcy.
Being content with someone that actually seems like they're going to be good.
So, going back to Mark Twain. So here Mark Twain he was working in a newspaper when he was a boy, which is kind of where his writing style came from.
And it was his brother's newspaper, right?
Yes, it was his brother's news. Well, it didn't start as his brother's newspaper, but his brother did buy the newspaper eventually.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then his brother would like disappear for weeks to try to go and sell land and other like get rich quick schemes, leaving essentially a 15-year-old to run the newspaper. And he just
Look at this picture of him at 15.
Oh my!
Look at that hair.
Oh my gosh!
and pretty much like he's a sour dude in all of his pictures, but like he would like write the most outrageous stuff. He would go after other people like in the community. He would like write whole articles about how people were just like terrible and make up just straight up lies about them. And he would just do like these weird random writing things in the newspaper. It was crazy. So people had very mixed feelings about old Samuel Clemens.
Yeah, and it kind of led him out west because they kind of drove him out of town because he was getting himself in trouble.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny.
Well, do you know what led him all the way out of town?
Wasn't his?
He was a Confederate.
Oh, that's true. He join the Confederacy,
Just the militia.
Just a militia.
and then he
But as soon as he
was
saw,
a deserter.
As soon as he saw a Grant come,
Literally. Yeah, and he didn't actually know. It was funny because him and Grant actually became friends.
Very good
Yeah,
friends.
he published.
really good friends.
He was part of the publishing of Grant's memoirs.
biography.
Yeah, but once Grant's army was coming, he just fled and took off west.
What a
So kind of a wuss.
Which is funny because he was anti-slavery later in life.
He was very anti, but that was after he met Frederick Douglass.
That's true.
Is that right, Frederick Douglass?
well, when they were talking about it, it's kind of interesting because at the time he said just because of the culture they lived in, there wasn't an understanding of that was wrong.
No.
And it wasn't until you have that enlightenment of someone else coming and saying, "Hey, this is what's happening," that he was like, "Oh, well, duh."
Yeah.
I mean, so and you see that quite a bit back in the time where it's like, well, what's wrong with it? And then you show them, they're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely shows. And the funny thing that I noticed about Mark Twain is he's when he learns something and truly believes it, he becomes an extremist.
Super extremist.
For example, as he's going out west, he stops here in Utah during the time of the polygamies.
The time of the polygamies.
During the time of them polygamies.
I wanted to talk like him, okay? But he was very critical because he saw it as almost that the man was overseeing his harem of slave women, kind of thing. And so he didn't like that.
No, he didn't. No, I mean, that being said, he was also probably drunk completely.
Yeah, he was.
So, because he was a major drinker when he came out west. He was also into mining when he came out here.
Major drinker his whole life.
There's a quote that I heard in one of the documentaries. It's really funny. I'm not going to quote it word for word because I can't remember. But he said, "This town isn't made for Protestants. Good thing I converted not to be one."
Yeah, he was really good with the quips. So all these things, all his early life really shaped who he would become. Like even when we go back to his views on slavery to begin with and black people, it's funny. He had these like really critical ideas about abolishing slavery. And yet like some of his most profound moments in his life were from a slave named Daniel.
Yeah.
Or Uncle Daniel is what they used to call him. And he was obsessed. Like he literally like would memorize the stories that this slave would tell him and like repeat them and repeat them and repeat them again and again and again. And a lot of people will look at his work now and see serious influences from the slaves that he kind of was raised up around.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what is so interesting to me is Mark Twain. Yeah, he's a dingbat, but he memorized. There was a lot of things that he memorized in youth that, like you said, influenced even a preacher in his area. He memorized a lot of the preachings, just to learn how to speak and how to, have
his mannerisms.
Yeah,
and everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was at the very beginning of this life that he ended up being almost like a savant, per se, where he would, or like a photographic memory is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So we'll get more into his history, but bringing back to the question, was he overrated? Josh,
Yes.
was he overrated?
No, I think, to be honest, like, I think he was, before his time. He was kind of the first person to really come out and have this humor, to come out and say things and not give a crap about what anyone else did. I mean, if you look in America today, it's all that.
It's all a bunch of Mark Twains running around.
Yeah, honestly. And so he was kind of the first person to really begin that, because that European influence, you think, it was only 60 years before he was born that we were part of Europe.
Yeah, sure.
And so that was kind of dying off and becoming truly what America is.
Yeah. And I mean, we can't talk about him without talking about the reformation of religion that was happening at that time.
Exactly.
I mean, people have probably guessed our religion by listening to this podcast. We don't come right out and say it, but
we're Catholics.
You know,
I'm just kidding.
But I mean, during that time, the reformed religious movement was a really, really important part of what was happening in America, because it was breaking away from European Calvinism. It was breaking away from Anglicanism, true European baptistry or Baptists. I mean, all these things were kind of starting to become a looser defined religion all throughout the United States. And you see that in Mark Twain. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk about Mark Twain kind of giving up on Christianity, but I don't think Mark Twain ever truly gave up on religion.
Yeah, just
I think
organized.
He just hated people.
He honestly, like, he got to a point where he just hated people, and I don't necessarily blame him, because his famous quote of, "If Christ came back today, there's one thing he wouldn't be: a Christian." Mm-hmm. You look at some of the terrible things that Christians did. I mean,
and that's the thing, is Mark Twain was very observant of his surroundings.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of his opinions and stuff weren't necessarily by like what people said or like wrote about. It was what he was observing at that very moment.
In his drunken stupor.
But
do
I still believe he's overrated? Yes.
I like it. What about you, Jake? Is he overrated?
I don't know. I think there became a legend that surrounded his name more than his person.
Oh, that's interesting.
So when you look at it, his name became like the staple for a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Like his name endorsed products, and because of that, people bought the product.
Sure.
When he got bankrupt, they were getting him out more to save the name than probably to save
Samuel Clemens himself.
Yeah.
Hey, fun fact. This is something I also learned. Do you realize that he was not the first Mark Twain?
Well, Mark Twain comes from
steamboats.
Yeah.
But there was another author who was using the pen name as Mark Twain, and so he couldn't use that pen name until that person died.
Oh, was he involved?
No, he wasn't involved. But he had to wait until that person died, and once that person died, that's when he became Mark Twain.
Old Mark Twain.
But I mean, you look at stuff even now. They have the Mark Twain Award.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I mean, what, the comedian thing, celebration. I mean, you have the Mark Twain boat.
Yeah, the steamboats. Everything is tied back to Mark Twain.
Yeah. I mean, even if you go into Hannibal in the historical district has just become straight Mark Twain. And it's kind of funny because Hannibal was actually kind of a historical place. There was a lot of things that were happening around there. And yet it's all Mark Twain. And I would happen to agree with Jake in that it seems that one thing that Mark Twain was good at was being Mark Twain.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, and he created the image. I mean, he was dressing in his white, nice suits all the time. Yeah. He had this crazy mustache, his crazy hair, but that was the image and the persona of Mark Twain.
Yep. Which is funny because his life after he came back from California, was very much not Mark Twain-ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we consider to be Mark Twain.
Depressing,
Well, I mean, he married a socialite. He married a East Coast socialite who came from a very wealthy family.
Who did not like him.
Who, to begin with, she didn't like him. He actually traveled, I think, on Innocents Abroad, if I remember right, one of the travelers was her brother.
Yeah,
and
that's on an ivory tablet.
Yeah.
He saw her picture.
See, and he was the one that stood up for Mark Twain because her parents were like, no.
Well, so it's back in the olden days, and can you imagine this? They would send out for references if you asked for a person's hand in marriage. So
I'm glad our in-laws didn't do that.
He went to his in-laws and wrote up a bunch of names of people that he thought would give him glowing like remarks as references, and like pretty much every single person said he is a drunk, he is a womanizer, he is sarcastic, he is all this, and like they just kept coming back and back and back, and finally, as the story goes, the father-in-law sat down and said, "I will not believe a word of it if my daughter agrees," and she said, "No, I love him," and the rest is history. And then, unfortunately, the father-in-law promptly died like a couple months later. So.
Yep.
Also potentially not Mark Twain. I'm going to put that on his name. There's a whole lot of death around Mark Twain.
It is true. And we'll probably approach that later on with his kids and wife.
But to be sappy, he did love her a lot.
Oh, unbelievably. I mean, the notes that they wrote, and there was a name that she used to call him, the youth. She would call him the youth because he acted like a kid
all the time.
I mean, and once again, this is a socialite. I mean, she grew up in the days of fine manners and proper, respect for everything. And here she was marrying this droll, short, red-headed, fiery-tempered, just, Missourian.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is he short?
Oh, he was really short.
Oh, how tall was he?
I don't know, 5'4", I think.
Oh, dang.
He was a short guy.
I guess everyone back then was kind of short because every time they picture him, he's short next to him.
So what books have you guys read of Mark Twain?
What have we tried to read by Mark Twain?
I mean, in school, we had to read Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, that's the only one I ever
of Huck
finished. I tried reading Huck Finn. I couldn't even make it through like the first 20 pages.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh, Huck Finn is one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
It is a heart-wrenching story of a boy coming to terms with the world around him and realizing that, like, everything he's been taught is wrong.
And do you know what's really funny? I heard this as well, and he recorded Mark Twain did not mean for those to be children's books.
Well, the way that it's written is there were what were called boy books at the time.
Yeah.
Which were sold door to door. So you'd have a door-to-door salesman that would go, they would present the boy books. And Mark Twain saw it as a really good opportunity, but he also realized that it could be like a novel-length boy book. Mm-hmm. His publisher, actually, when he was writing Tom Sawyer, which was the first book of the two, his publisher said to him, "You can't keep this boy a boy. He needs to grow up and become a man and go on adventures for you to sell it as a serious book." And it was kind of a big thing that Mark Twain said, "No, I'm just going to keep him as a boy. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to end the story the way that he ended it," which is random. I mean, coming out of a funeral and then showing up at their funeral and then talking to his aunt at the end. I mean, it's a really weird way to end a story. And yet people loved it. Mm-hmm. I will admit it's a hard read nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an easy read. Mark Twain, and Huck Finn especially, because it's written in cadence, so it's written like in the vernacular of the time, and so you're like, oh my goodness. Yeah, seriously, and it kind of is. And that's kind of the same with all of his books. I mean, Innocents Abroad, Roughing It, The Gilded Age.
That tends to be the problem with the majority of the books I had to read in school. As my wife's listening, who's a literary major, going, "What are you saying?"
Yeah. I think those were the only two that I read. I had no interest.
I don't blame people. I don't, because there's a part of me that just read him because it was like, oh, I'm reading Mark Twain. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at me. I'm enjoying Mark Twain.
So what you're saying, you were doing it all for pride.
Kind of. Honestly,
you're a Mark Twain.
I think that I was probably reading a lot of it for pride.
A Mark Twit.
Is that the followers of the religion
anyone
of Mark
that
Twain?
follows the religion of Mark Twain is now Mark Twit.
I am a Mark Twit.
We can't say what Josh said because he's gonna have to beep it out.
Seriously. Go ahead and calm down. No, I really I learned to enjoy reading them, and I'll still read Huck Finn probably once every 2 years, just because I enjoy it so much.
I'll say this: I think the reason that you like it so much and why I don't is you put yourself in their shoes.
Yes.
In Mark Twain's shoes. What did he see? What was his childhood like? I just see what he did, and I was like, man, he's a piece of crap. And so
they're gonna go down the Missouri. Oh.
I think if you really do like
the Missouri.
understand like where he came from and the challenges that he faced, it makes the stories real because the stories are based off of a lot of what he went through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his famous books that he came out with before Tom Sawyer, I mean, Innocents Abroad was a huge smash hit. And it's something that we don't talk about nearly enough, I believe. And that's when he went over to Europe and the Holy Land. Mm-hmm. And that was the kind of the first travel log. And people ate it up. I mean, he literally made a huge amount of money in that day and time.
Making fun of the Europeans.
Making fun of the Europeans. And then having two characters that were just doing buffoonery things, which were based on him and another guy who were really just doing buffoonery things. I mean, they were...
I know. And then he went to the Sandwich Islands later.
He did. Actually, no, he went to the Sandwich Islands before.
And that one is just vulgar.
It is very vulgar.
There
was a lot of topless talk in that one.
Yes, he stated this. He said he had to sit on the clothes of the women of Hawaii as they ran around topless because he didn't want them to lose their clothes.
That's definitely the reason why.
Yep, that's the reason why.
For any young man would say, you know what, ladies, I will watch your clothes.
So,
yep, Mark Twain did.
Mark Twain in later life. What happened to him?
So, a lot of tragic stuff.
Big time.
Pretty deep, tragic. I mean, his mom dies. Mm-hmm. He loses almost all of his kids, except for one.
So he had two daughters.
He lost the daughter that really was his.
Yeah, his favorite.
His favorite.
Yeah.
Kind of his prodigy.
He also, and then he lost an infant son.
Yeah.
And he always blamed himself because he took the son out on a carriage ride in the cold, and he feels like he didn't bundle him up enough. The reality is infant mortality at the time probably was what caused it.
Yeah.
But
oh man, every time you look up more and more, you're like, oh,
it's terrible.
Goodness.
I can't even put myself in the shoes because it makes me so sick. But
yeah, he went through some pretty challenging stuff and
nearly went bankrupt.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was saved by one of the oil barons, and then was it his daughter?
Yep, his daughter took over kind of control of him. Of not him, but his
estate.
His estate, and actually,
you stay put. Don't make any more deals with anyone.
Well, and a lot of that came from not only him but his wife. I mean, she grew up very, very wealthy, and so she spent like she was still very, very wealthy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he was pretty wealthy for film and stuff, but then he kept making the silly ideas that I can make more money doing this.
Now, I want to bring this up because this is kind of something, and I get this from his daughter, but also his granddaughter. Do you think he had a mental illness?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question.
Because for those of you who don't know, his daughter lived for quite a long period of time, but his granddaughter had some mental issues and ended up committing suicide through being drunk and other things. And those who were around him, his kids and other things, almost appeared to have similar vices to almost hide something. So I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, it clearly states that he had depression at some point, but was there another mental illness that he could have had that made him, who he was?
I talked a little bit earlier about his mom. And there's a lot of people who think that was a really big tongue click. Did you guys hear that? Anyways, there's a lot of people that think that his mom actually had a form of psychosis. Mm-hmm. Like that she, that her abnormal fixation with things it could have been a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. Mm-hmm. When Mark Twain wrote, he wrote for hours and hours and hours and hours at a time.
Yeah.
It was not unusual in a 3-week period of time for him to write 700 pages, which is unheard of if you have read anything about modern day authors. I mean,
and he was still, the typewriter was just becoming a thing around the time. So
yeah, he was still handwriting things out. And I mean, it is one thing that he always talked about is he wrote big enough that it was only like 70 words a page, but still to have that kind of tenacity in writing, you have to wonder if maybe he was obsessive compulsive. And the way that he would fixate on people, he would fixate on a person, and for good or ill, that was his fixation.
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla, he fixated on Nikola Tesla, became really, really good friends with him later in life. He fixated on his one daughter to the extent that his other daughter kind of felt left out. I mean, he was kind of I don't know. I think that he probably could have had something.
And that's, and with alcoholism, which ran in his genetics, I'm wondering if that was almost a self-medication for something that was undiagnosed at the time that didn't really necessarily exist.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a really interesting question.
But since you brought up Nikola Tesla, I want to tell you a story.
Once upon a time.
I believe he was having migraines, our dear friend Mark Twain. So Nikola Tesla said, hey, I got the remedy. You need to step into this cage. I'm going to shock the cage, and it's going to fix your migraine.
Oh, is that when he was stepping up on top of the table?
Yeah. And he stood in there for a little too long, burned his suit.
Now, was it a migraine? I thought it was bowel issues.
He was sick.
He was
he left that experience and had to go right to the bathroom, is what I heard. So.
Yeah. But his suit was ruined because Nikola Tesla shocked it off of him, basically.
Well, and he had a lot of really famous friends of the time. I mean, we talked about Nikola Tesla, but Harriet Beecher Stowe, Frederick Douglass, he was really involved kind of in that era, and he put himself in those places. We talked about him being really close with President Grant.
Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he was a man of the time. And that's why I falter in between if he's overrated or not, because what would the world look like without a Mark Twain?
We wouldn't be here.
Well, do you have some kind of deep insight or something where mom and dad reading
I think podcasts are a result.
Ooh, that's an interesting thought.
The end.
I think that there's actually recorded audio from Mark Twain, if I remember right.
There is recorded audio, but it hasn't been found. They know that he did it, but one of his best friends was an impressionist and was like the best impressionist of the day and mimicked Mark Twain reading. And we have that.
Oh.
But it was very
that exactly.
That's probably exactly what he sounded like.
Exactly. So
interesting. Okay.
But we need to bring up something.
Bring it up.
The angelfish.
Tell us about the angelfish in the aquarium club, Josh.
No, I have no idea. That's why I brought it up.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know if I heard about this.
No, this is his quote unquote granddaughters, as they were referred to. But it was a house. His house was called the aquarium, or whatever. And he would reach out and have these dialogues with these girls, and he would treat them as granddaughters. And it was kind of a weird taboo thing that he did, but studies show that nothing ever happened. He really did just care and like girls between the ages of 11 and 16.
Yeah, they were really, really young, but he would invite them out to plays, and he just enjoyed being around the innocent.
Yeah.
And it does sound like, especially now, modern day sensibilities, there's some like, oh, what the heck was going on there? Oh, Mark Twain. But every historian that I've ever read, all of his biographers that I've read, they really do say it was just he was mourning the loss of his two daughters. Yeah. Because he had lost, by that time, Susie, who was his favorite. And then I think his other one was named Lauren that he lost. I'm going to double check myself.
I don't know, but his other daughter showed up and said, no
You
more of
knock
this.
that off.
Yep.
Yeah, he actually wrote that it was the joy of his life.
Yep. Like Clara.
Yeah.
Clara was the other daughter.
Clara was the other one.
No, Clara died later on, so it might have been Jean.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was Clara.
I think Clara was the one that lived, that inherited.
Jean died in 1909.
What was that?
Sorry. I just wanted to have this moment to talk about. No, I really am losing my voice. Where's my water?
Yeah, but that was really his...
I forgot it.
Like, that brought him out of his depression kind of stage with his daughters dying, with many other things going on.
Yeah, because he literally went into almost a 10-year depression.
Yeah.
Because Olivia, who was his wife, died in 1904.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter died in 1896. And then the aquarium club wasn't created until 1906. And so it was, I don't want to, I want to keep it as innocent as possible because I really do think it was innocent. I think it was just an old man mourning. And who...
He was looking for opportunities to adopt in his own way.
Yeah, kind of. Who was looking for innocence, who was pining after his daughter, who he loved more than anything because she was a practical joker and was kind of the foil to him. So
yeah.
She got meningitis. Her brain swelled.
Who?
His daughter, Clara.
Oh, that
West Nile.
Oh.
Oh, wait, that wasn't introduced until the next century.
Probably yellow fever or something.
100 years later.
Yeah, she got meningitis, and it said that her head swelled 5 times larger.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty awful to live back then.
Dang.
So, Mark Twain overrated 100%, or are we leaning more towards like 50% overrated?
I'll ask you this.
Ooh.
Not to any of our Hollywood actors and actresses who are listening to this podcast, but do you believe Hollywood's overrated?
Do I believe Hollywood's overrated?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Because I believe Mark Twain was kind of that role back then.
He was the Hollywood.
He was the, everyone wanted to be him. Everyone wanted his autograph, whatever. They loved his work and different things. And so I believe he was the one that was the first kind of celebrity status of America.
Well, and they do say that. I mean, there was a couple authors kind of around his time that were pretty darn close to him, but he was the first that was not only just national, but international.
Yeah.
I mean, over in England, they loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually part of his consternation, is that at the time, copyright laws just allowed anybody to produce his work anywhere. He had the copyright in the US that he controlled, but over in England and Canada and everything, didn't have any control of his own books. And so it annoyed him to no end that the Europeans loved him because he wasn't getting any money from them.
Yeah.
So
I would say, is he overrated? Yes, but I think his impact on the US can't be overlooked.
Ooh, see, I like that. I think that if we're talking about just pure literary, if we're just talking about his being a author, there was much better authors at the time.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, Charles Dickens.
You have Ernest Hemingway.
Ernest Hemingway was a couple years later.
Yeah.
I mean, there's better writers and better literature that came from him.
Mm-hmm.
But as a cultural icon, I think I would agree with you that he was up there. And I would dare say that he formed what would be American sensibilities later on. He kind of took the United States in the time when the United States was a fractured mess and kind of, through his writing, formed an idea of what America could be and is, for good and for ill. Because I honestly think, people idolize Mark Twain, but he was a drunkard.
Yeah, he was crazy.
He had a violent temper. He was very full of himself, and he didn't treat people very nice.
No.
Like his brother Orion.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. It's funny because as we're talking about it, the name that also comes to mind, and it was around the same time, a little bit later, but around the same time, I think Charlie Chaplin is very similar to Mark Twain in the sense of what he was idolized for all of his work.
Sure.
But he was a womanizer out of the get-go and also a prideful son of a gun. But like both of their personalities, they were really loved for what they did. The person, not so much, but their work is what changed the course of history.
It is really interesting because as we've been talking about all this historical, topics as they come forward, you kind of find that. You see the humanity behind the people that we talk about. Even going back to King Tut, like you saw kind of when the mystique was taken away from King Tut, you saw kind of a broken boy.
Yeah, literally.
And with Mark Twain, I think it's even more apparent just because he's so recent compared to some of the other ones that we've talked about. He is just kind of this full of himself Missourian who was at the right place at the right time to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's, I mean, better writer than I could ever be, no doubt. But like,
do you know what I think it is? His mustache. If you look at Charlie Chaplin's mustache, which a guy by the name of Adolf ended up stealing, and he ruined it.
Josh just brought up Hitler in a podcast.
No,
Thanks,
I
Josh.
said Adolf.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You. Whatever.
What other Adolf is there?
I say you can't have that mustache no more.
Nope.
Unless you're Michael Jordan.
Does Michael Jordan have that?
He did for a little while. He had
What
like
the
that little.
crap?
Yeah, I know.
Is it because he couldn't grow one?
Probably.
Yeah. But if you look at Mark Twain, he had a mustache. Charlie Chaplin, he had a mustache.
Albert Einstein, he had a mustache.
Had a mustache. Also, crazy hair. Albert Einstein,
It's
crazy,
the crazy hair.
Charlie Chaplin, crazy hair. Nikola Tesla, really nice,
See, now if we tried having a
But
mustache,
psychotic.
but psychotic.
we would probably end up being called into the police headquarters
I think so too.
because my mustache never comes in full.
either.
That's the only thing I can grow.
Is a mustache?
Well, then grow a mustache.
No, my wife would leave me in an instant.
Oh, come on. No, she wouldn't.
She's seen my mustache. It is ugly.
Yeah, my wife hates my mustache. Hates it. And what's funny, she comes from a family where like her dad can grow a mean mustache. Like my father-in-law, when he grows a mustache, it is awesome.
Well, our grandpa grew a mean mustache.
Yeah, he did. But I do not have the mustache staying power.
I
wish
haven't
I did.
shaved my face. I think we're approaching like 7 years now.
Really?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
See,
I keep telling myself as soon as I lose weight, it happens, and then, and then I never lose
I
weight.
shaved mine off and I was like, oh my gosh, I have 20 chins.
Which is fun to characterize, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
it's like 40 chins going on.
Did
over
Mark
there.
Twain have 40 chins? Is that why he grew his mustache?
No, but he had a pretty sweet, wrinkly chin.
He did?
Yeah.
He was, I mean, he was a dour guy though. Like you don't ever see any picture of him smiling. And people are always saying, oh, that's because of the time. No, he just kind of looked unpleasant.
Like, look at this.
Every time I saw a picture of him, I always went, "Rrr."
Look at this. He almost looks like he's glaring at you all the time.
He
He's
is.
glaring at me all the time.
He's like,
But look at that. I mean,
that
that
mustache
is the
though.
coolest mustache.
Look how dapper he looks in this picture. By the way, all the pictures we're referencing Wikipedia.
He looks good. He looks good.
Do you know what I think it was? It wasn't necessarily that he had a mean face. He had a mean eyebrow.
Just a single eyebrow.
No, I think he had two, but it stuck out about 3 inches.
I see why he didn't want to smile.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Don't smile.
Don't look up Mark Twain smiling. You kind of get the not so happy picture. Oh, but you get a 3D one not 3D one, an AI one that's like, oh, he's a cute old man with a little, what is that dog? A pug? No, that's not a pug. What is that?
Bulldog.
Mastiff? Bulldog.
Is that what it is?
English bulldog.
I don't know.
Do bulldogs have wrinkly faces like that?
Wrinkly.
Oh, yeah. English bulldogs, they're super wrinkly.
Did Mark Twain even have a dog?
I actually think he did.
Oh, I was going to say,
Mark
what
Twain
kind
had a
of
couple
AI
dogs.
world just pictures
Just making up stuff.
dog with Mark Twain?
Here you go. Wrinkles should merely indicate where the smile. Oh wait, it doesn't have the finish it. Where the smile has been.
He didn't have any wrinkles.
He had a lot of wrinkles around his chin, so he was frowning a lot.
He really was. Okay, we're going to do some Mark Twain quotes.
Oh,
Ooh,
no.
Mark Twain.
Couple-
Be careful here.
50 inspiring quotes by Mark Twain.
Inspiring.
Oh, and look, it even has a little.
Oh my gosh.
I feel good about my art looking at that one.
Well, let me see. Oh my crap! Don't list what that is.
Okay.
Famous Twain quotes.
Who's going to start? Josh, go for it.
Always obey your parents when they are present.
It is better to keep your mouth closed and let people think you are a fool than to open it and remove all doubt.
That's my life right there.
I failed miserably.
Oh, writing is easy. All you have to do is cross out the wrong words, which is all of them.
Clothes do not merely make the man. Clothes are the man.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
I got really super inspirational ones. I wanted to find silly ones. The secret is getting ahead of getting started. Oh, wait, no. The secret to getting ahead is getting started. That completely changed the context of that.
That really did. I was like, yes, that is correct.
There is no sadder thing than a young pessimist except an old optimist.
Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress, but I repeat myself.
Wow.
I know.
Dang, Gina.
Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the hill that has crushed it. You're right. Where's all the funny ones?
If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mark Twain quote.
Here you go. The lack of money is the root of all evil.
True.
Famous Mark Twain quotes.
Classic. A book which people praise and don't read.
Like his now.
I'm confused by this one. Man is only animal that blushes or needs to.
We're the only ones that get embarrassed.
I guess.
Have you ever seen a dog get embarrassed?
I think kind of. It's that one where they put their nose down and look up at you.
I have seen a dog get embarrassed. My Labrador, if he did anything bad, and you didn't even have to catch him in the act, but if you were just to point out something that happened, he would go and hide himself and he would definitely blush. So Mark Twain's full.
Here's one, and this does have a swear word, so you're gonna have to bleep me out. Quoting.
Why don't you just not say the word?
Okay. Substitute dang every time you're inclined to write very. Your editor will delete it, and the writing will be just as it should be.
Go to heaven for the climate, hell for the company.
There is nothing sadder than a young pessimist. Well, except an old pessimist.
Oh my gosh.
Didn't Josh say that one?
Yeah,
Is that what you said? Okay. I haven't been paying attention to anything you've been saying. I'm going to probably repeat myself multiple times.
God created war so Americans can learn geography.
Ooh, God created war so Americans can learn geography?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was quoting that here.
You're a dork.
Actions speak louder than words, but not nearly as often. I don't know what that means.
There's just too many inspirational ones that aren't that funny.
That's true.
Here's one. What would men be without women? Scarce, sir. Very scarce.
That's a good one.
Let's see. Mark Twain funny quotes. Politicians and diapers must be changed often and for the same reason.
Because there's poop in it.
Gross.
Well, I don't know. Have you guys ever watched, there's a claymation Mark Twain
Oh, the one with the devil?
show? Yeah.
That one is terrifying. I found that by accident a few months ago. And then while I was looking up his documentaries, I found it again.
So did you know, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent about claymation for a minute.
Okay.
Because I just got done watching Claymation Christmas.
Do you realize
that's
that
like Christmas
it
Eve tradition
was
for me.
25 years ago?
Claymation Christmas?
No, it was way earlier than that.
It could have been 25 years
No,
ago.
35 years ago.
It was.
Yeah.
The Claymation Christmas came
Yep,
out?
1989.
Oh, I thought that came out like in the 70s.
Well, let me look.
No, the guy who actually made it, California Raisins, came out in the 80s too.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I think so.
I must be thinking of the all the other Christmas.
Yeah, you're thinking of
sorry. I'm sorry. It's even older. It's Danny's age.
37?
Yeah.
Came out when I was born?
December 21st, 1987.
Oh, I was a
Danny.
wee little boy.
The California Raisins ushered you in.
They ushered me in. Have you seen any of the other claymation things? Because they have
I've
a
tried looking them up, but I
claymation
haven't found
Easter
them.
and a claymation Halloween.
I have not seen those.
Is the Halloween one just
They are weird,
Weird.
as all get out.
because
And
when you watch it as an adult, you're like, wow, these are interesting.
yeah, they're funky. The guy was a pretty darn famous, like in claymation. He actually did quite a bit of work that I was surprised of when I was looking at him the other day. He's like a modern day Mark Twain, but in clay.
Ooh.
I think he actually even had a mustache.
I told you.
The mustache makes the man.
Wait, what was that famous actor who had the mustache? Tom Selleck. Yep. Good guy.
Hey, Blue Blends is it?
Blue
I can tell. I'm gonna say this. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress. But I repeat myself.
I think I said that one too.
I know.
Wait, I had a good one.
Okay, that's really
When angry, count 4. When very angry, swear.
done. I don't like to commit myself about heaven or hell. You see, I have friends in both places.
That's really funny.
Clothes make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society. Well, except for Adam and Eve.
The dog is a gentleman. I hope to go to his heaven, not man's.
Oh, that's another one. Have you guys watched All Dogs Go to Heaven with your kids yet, Jake?
No, I will not watch that one. Because, well, that's all. I watched it with Julie. She watched all those, the ones that were all done by that company. Like
Don Bluth.
Yeah. What's the other one? She loves The Secret of Nim.
Nim. Yeah, The Secret of Nim.
Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at these movies.
Well, they're
But when you find out
intense.
more about this, the All Dogs Go to Heaven too, the little girl that played the little girl, she was killed shortly before he said the words, right as he was leaving back to heaven. Like in real life, her dad killed her.
Oh my gosh.
And so the emotion that he was saying in that movie, they said was the real emotion that he was saying.
When
her.
did that film come out?
Oh, latter 80s, early 90s.
I know who you're talking about. It's the same girl who voices Ducky.
Oh, it is the
Land
same one.
Before Time.
Oh, is it?
Yep, she died because her dad murdered her and her mom.
Oh my gosh.
See,
this went from a Mark Twain to a...
It was one of those ones where, again, you find out about it and then you're like, a whole new meaning, and I don't want to watch it anymore.
Oh, I can't. Well, we're going to end.
We are?
Yes, we are at the end. I want everybody to pick a Mark Twain quote, and then one final time, is Mark Twain overrated? Josh, your quote, go.
I have a higher and grander standard of principle than George Washington. He could not lie. I can.
Okay.
The end.
Is Mark Twain overrated?
I think we should still learn about him, but he shouldn't be like the focus of language arts, as they call it nowadays in school.
Ooh, you think that we should take out Huck Finn from the...
No, I don't think it should be banned in schools, because I know that's been banned in a few schools, but I think it shouldn't be like a focal point.
Ah, interesting. Jake.
Neither of like Mice and Men. Like, why are we reading that?
Oh, now. I will not have that kind of talk about John Steinbeck.
Or how about the Island of Flies? What's that called?
Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, that one, man.
Oh, hey. How about Fahrenheit 451?
Oh, you all.
See, it's all depressing, man. No wonder these kids are
The Great
doing
Gatsby, let's see. What's some other ones from that era that we can make fun of?
My heart hurts.
Scrooge. Oh, wait. I like
the
that one.
Pearl.
The Pearl. What's the one where it's an Ernest Hemingway one where he is out in the thing trying to catch the whale forever and ever and ever.
Oh, you mean, I don't think Ernest Hemingway wrote that, but the...
No, it was The Old Man in the Sea. That's Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, that
and
one?
He like cramps up. The only thing I remember is he cramped his hands because he was holding onto the rope forever.
Oh, I was getting that confused with what's the big whale that they go after?
Moby Dick.
That one, thankfully, I never had to read. Josh,
I'm so immature.
I just like to point out that this closing has now we have literally just destroyed modern day literature.
And that's the thing. Is it modern? No. It was written 150 freaking years ago. Modern is like, dude, Lords of the Rings.
It's now classic. And we don't care about classic.
Yeah, why aren't we reading Lords of the Rings as classic, like perfect literature.
Lord of the Rings is classic.
No, but we're not reading it in English class as like an assignment.
I did, but not as an assignment, just out of my own free
I was
will.
going to say it's
book
probably
report
because
over and over.
fantasy is never as well respected as some of the other ones.
Which is the biggest bunch of bull I've ever heard.
Okay, Jake, your quote.
April 1st. This is the day upon which we are reminded of what we are on the other 364 days. I don't know what that means, other than probably people play pranks on each other.
What the crap? Dude, he was nuts.
And was Mark Twain overrated?
Was that what we were talking about?
Yes.
Oh,
That's what the entire point of this podcast was.
Shoot.
is it really? I would say that I don't care.
Oh,
Thanks, Jake.
thanks for your insight, Jake.
I personally did not read his books. He brought about a movement that has continued until now, for better or for worse. And so, yes, I think that movement was brought about by him. Would others have done it? Yes. But he was the one that was the foremost just because that's where he wanted to be.
Yeah,
He wanted to be the front and center person with his white tux and all that.
he did.
Josh is raising his hand.
Yeah, can I resubmit my answer?
You
No.
may.
He is not overrated because he has a boat named Mark Twain Steamboat at Disneyland, and I like going on it.
That's a great one.
I thought you were about to say he named a boat after himself. This is my boat, Mark
I mean,
Twain.
how bad could a person be if they're involved in Disneyland? Maybe we shouldn't answer that question.
I think they're removing that boat now.
Are they really?
I thought I heard that they were going to change that out.
Oh
Mark
my
Twain?
gosh.
So Mark Twain's not going to yell at you in the middle of the boat anymore. That's what we used to do in New Orleans.
Was that what he...
Yeah, that's supposed to be Mark Twain. That's talking
Oh,
to
it
you.
is? I thought
Yes.
I thought it was the old prospector yelling at me.
Well, now you know.
Now, does that
He
mean,
was a prospector.
So wait, is he the same? So is it the same voice that does Big Thunder Mountain?
I don't actually know.
Howdy, folks.
That's just Mark
For
Twain.
your safety.
Okay, wait. I am so confused.
You should be.
Okay, wait. I'm going to do my quote, and then
Okay.
Josh can go.
Okay.
The trouble ain't that there is too many fools, but that the lightning ain't distributed right.
See? Blasphemy.
And I publicly would like to say I love Mark Twain, and I apologize for my brothers to all of the literature majors out there, including but not limited to my sister-in-law,
I'm going to get so much
who
grief
is
for
going
this.
to quite literally probably beat Jake to death.
Just so you can picture this incredibly beautiful woman who is extraordinary, the nicest person ever, books galore. And she'll point at a book and be like, "This is amazing," and I'll be like, "I don't want to."
And then
And
she's
she-
going to take that book and slap you in the
She's
face.
going to listen to this podcast and listen to Josh say that John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men is overrated.
It's not overrated. It's just we shouldn't be teaching it in classes.
Well, I know how to make up for it. Scarlet Pimpernel is a good book.
Ooh, that brings up the Scarlet Letter.
No, it doesn't.
What, is that overrated too, Josh?
Yes. Why are we teaching that the priest can sleep with the woman and not get
We
punished?
aren't teaching that. We're teaching that she lived with the Scarlet A and became a good person, so much so that the A was considered an act of kindness, and he lived an entire life because of the secrets that
I'd just
he
like to
hid.
point out the first page says,
You son of a...
and the Puritans came to settle a perfect town, and the first building they built was what? A prison, and the second, a graveyard.
That's true. It is true.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
The Scarlet Letter?
I've never read it.
Dude, I had to read that for my honors English class.
Again, I'm going to get a lot of grief.
This is going to be bad for everyone. Well, anyways, with that,
Uh-oh.
we're going to go ahead and close up. Thank you so much for joining us at Twaddling Along today with our discussion about
Sorry
Mark
for
Twain.
ADHD, man.
We really kind of went off topic a couple times there, including, I think halfway through, both of my co-hosts just completely lost interest in Mark Twain and started just...
You act like we had interest to begin with.
That being said, welcome back. We are going to be starting our next 3 series now. So next week will be paranormal, and that will be Jake who is deciding that.
Oh, crap. Is that me?
That is you, followed by the human conditions and Josh. Merry Christmas. We are coming in the Christmas season. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful time. Remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, if you have any comments that you would like to leave either on one of those, or you can also use our email at emails@twaddlingalong.com to leave us ideas for shows. As you can tell, we probably need it.
And just a reminder, if you do love Mark Twain, I just want to say from deepest part of my heart, you are a Mark Twin.
You cock-eyed twin.
Oh,
Deal with it, live with it. We love you.
But you're
thank
not
you
a
for
Mark.
joining us. Thank you for joining us at Twaddling Along.